In this film comparative study, we will be looking into the genre of psychological thriller through the analysis of past and present use of camera techniques and mise-en-scene to characterize an antagonist. The first film we analyze is Alfred Hitchcock's 1960 film Psycho. It's a mystery horror film known for its psychological thriller aspect. Hitchcock made this genre of film in the 1900s, often choosing to film in black and white even though color was available. The film is about a secretary named Marion Crane who steals money from her boss and flees away in a car. She gets caught in a storm and stops at an isolated motel run by a young man named Norman Bates. He turns out to be a psycho with a bipolar issue, where he tries to live out his dead mother's life as well as his own. He ends up killing Marion and is eventually taken down by detectives who come search his house in the absence of the secretary. A socio-cultural aspect that affected the production of this film was that during this time period, violence in movies was not as common, so Hitchcock chose to film in black and white so that the blood and disturbing details would be diluted and thus more acceptable in society. Furthermore, at this point in filmmaking history, women were societally seen as the weaker gender. This aspect of gender structure can be attributed to the fact Marion, a stunning blonde female lady, is to be the victim of a murderer in the film rather than a man. The second film is a modern take on the psychological thriller genre called The Dark Knight, directed by Christopher Nolan in 2008. In this movie, Bruce Wayne protects the city of Gotham from crime when the Joker promises to destroy Batman for money. The plot ensues with the Joker hurting civilians and making threats while Batman attempts to save the population. Harvey, a once accomplice to Batman, has sided with the Joker to commit crimes but falls to his death. To prevent other criminals from being released, Batman takes the blame for those actions Harvey made, leaving a bitter ending. In this point in film history, there are more developed cities around the world with many skyscrapers and industrialism. This impacted the setting of the movie to take place in a big city, Gotham City, as it would appeal to many individuals who either live in cities themselves or have been around them. In contrast to Psycho, violence and blood is significantly more acceptable in films, so Nolan uses this to his advantage in making the film to create more action, evoke emotion, and keep the audience engaged. In this famous scene, Norman Bates, dressed up as his mother, creeps up on Marion Crane as she takes a shower. We see at the beginning a medium shot of Marion, where the composition has her mostly at the center of focus, yet part of it is given to the blank space on the left, and as the camera zooms into that spot, we can outline a darkish blob. Notice how Marion, the curtain, and the bathroom in general is all white, but once the screen is pulled back, there's a sudden juxtaposition of Norman's black silhouette against the whiteness of the bathroom, creating a sudden thrill. The only other black element in the scene is Marion's blood, which can connect to the antagonist's intent of not only being a dark entity in a pure world, but that his or her intent involves shedding blood. A similar element of juxtaposition is used in the scene where the Joker is shown in jail in deep focus, having the guards in the foreground, the Joker in the middle ground, and the criminals fighting in the background. By the rule of thirds, the Joker is put in the middle between the bars to make it visually more impactful to the audience. In a scene of mostly gray and blackness of the cells, prisoners, and guards, the only color that stands out is the Joker's green and purple attire, and it quickly appears on the screen as the guards pass by, making the juxtaposition sudden and startling to the audience, especially considering the Joker stares directly into the camera. It emphasizes that the villain is uniquely more dangerous and worse than the surrounding prisoners, giving foreshadowing to the awful crimes he will make in the future.
But as long as you fixed a supper, we may as well eat it.
Marion invites Norman to eat dinner inside her room, but he becomes hesitant and offers to eat in the parlor room. Yet as he says this, he looks down, and the lighting from above casts a shadow across his eyes, making them appear like two black sockets. The uncertainty of his eyes as they are essentially gone mirrors his actions as a dark mystery and makes his character appear more suspicious. By contrast, in the Dark Knight opening scene of the bank robbery, the Joker with the mask on has low-key lighting across his face, which emphasizes the details of the face mask with intentional shadows, creating dramatic, suspicious, and even scary effects, as claimed by David Landau in his book Lighting for Cinematography. In Psycho, the use of high-key lighting created dark eye sockets on the antagonist, but in The Dark Knight, the choice to use a mask with deep holes for the eye cutout maintained the darkness of the sockets while still being able to emphasize details on the mask with low-key lighting from the side. The effect is similar to Psycho, in which the audience can anticipate the antagonist's intent to harm through suspicion created by emotions evoked by the details of the shadows on the mask and uncertainty in the eyes. Directors in both films use mise-en-scene to let the audience subconsciously use the meaning of the objects in the background to tie into the characterization of antagonists and
Eating in
exposing
the
their
office
malicious
is
intents.
just too officious. I have the parlor back here.
All right.
Sit down.
In the movie Psycho, Norman offers Marion dinner in his parlor room. As he walks in the room, the film jump cuts to a medium shot of the birds on the wall. In the film analysis book, Moments That Made the Movie by David Thompson, he points out how a seemingly simple cold supper is turned into an uncomfortable situation with all the dead birds surrounding the room. The birds, an owl and raven, are real and have undergone taxidermy, giving them a predator vibe, characterizing Norman as a predator and letting the audience anticipate his dark intentions. Lighting is cast across the birds so a long shadow is created to make the mood feel more ominous. Once Norman sets down the plate, the shot is taken from a low angle, emphasizing his power to do evil. It's further depicted by having the shadow of the owl's wings cast around his head to appear as a devil's horns, which characterizes him as a character with evil ambitions just like the devil. Mise-en-scene is also used in The Dark Knight to characterize the Joker and foreshadow his intents.
You see, I'm a guy of simple taste. I enjoy, dynamite, and gunpowder, and gasoline. What's it? And you know the thing that they have in common? They're cheap.
Said you were a man of few words.
Oh, I am. I'm only burning my half. All you care about is money. This town, it deserves a better class of criminal. And I'm gonna give it to them. Tell your men they work for me now. This is my city.
In this scene, the Joker confronts a mob boss with a literal mountain of his own money in the background. To prove his purpose for committing crimes is to be a criminal of pure evil and not financial gain, he burns a share of the cash. In the book Men's Cinema, Masculinity, and Mise-en-Scene in Hollywood by Stella Bruzzi, she writes that male villains often in superhero movies tend to have violent images in the background, as the audience uses that mise-en-scene to associate that character as the antagonist. This can be seen with the Joker as the cash blazes in the background of the reverse shot, creating a hellish mood in which the mise-en-scene of burning money makes the Joker appear almost like a devil, an entity that creates pain for the sole purpose of suffering and not money, much like the Joker's intents. Use of the zoom effect to create discomfort in which that feeling is associated with the villain, ultimately building the character. At this point in the film, it hasn't been revealed that Norman Bates is bipolar and trying to live his mother's life as well as his own. As his next victim runs into the basement, she believes to be seeing Norman's mother. As the figure turns around, the camera jump cuts from a medium to a close-up shot of the dead, shriveled body of Norman's mother. The sudden transition to a close-up detailed shot of the gruesome face evokes emotions of disgust as well as adrenaline. We can also see how technological advances at the time in terms of props weren't as sophisticated, as the average viewer can tell the dead body is fake, yet is still horrifying enough to let the audience characterize Norman as being crazy for hiding his dead mother in the basement. Christopher Nolan also uses dead bodies in The Dark Knight to build up the Joker's personality. As the men have a conference at the top of a skyscraper, one of them walks to the window when suddenly a dead body with a smile of the Joker, dressed in a Batman costume, slams into the window. Rather than a jump cut to a close-up like in Psycho, there's a zoom to a close-up. There's a similar effect from Psycho, as the zoom emphasizes the eerie details in the dead smile, letting the audience associate the body to the actions of the Joker. Furthermore, the viewer knows the antagonist is a criminal on a different level, using a dead body simply to create fear, foreshadowing the Joker creating future horrific crimes. In conclusion of this comparative study, we were able to look at two psychological thriller movies, Psycho and The Dark Knight, and see how the directors and film crew were able to build the character of the villains in their respective movies through lighting, mise-en-scene, and the zoom effect. It's important to realize that the movies were made in different time periods with differing technological advances and societal expectations that influenced the production of the movie. Yet we can see how both use similar methods to convey meaning about their antagonists through subtle film techniques. From this film comparative, we can learn and appreciate the power of lighting, camera techniques, and mise-en-scene in the background to heighten the audience's experiences when characterizing villains.